Louisville's 22-point loss to the Tennessee Volunteers reiterates that Cardinal fans need to be patient with this year's squad.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the university, third year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville free and available on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. The Louisville Cardinals got blown out at home against the Tennessee Volunteers on Saturday, sparking a lot of concerns amongst the fan base, but I'm here to explain why you need to exercise some patience with this year's team. We'll discuss what went wrong, interior defense, rebounding, giving up second chance points. Not much went right, let's put it that way, but we'll explain what exactly went wrong here soon. And then we'll identify the biggest concerns moving forward for Pat Kelsey's team in his first season as head coach of the Cardinals. Louisville, unfortunately, it was a tough day at the office for Pat Kelsey's team. It took almost 6 minutes for the team to score their first basket. At that point, they were down 10-0. They did not hold the lead at any point in the game against Tennessee. They didn't shoot the ball well. They didn't defend well. They didn't rebound well. Overall, not much went right for the team. And I'll say the atmosphere was great. I felt like Card Nation, they showed up and showed out. It was the largest home atmosphere in November in the past, 7-8 seasons, according to Kelly Dickey on Twitter. So, shout out to Card Nation for showing up and being loud. But unfortunately, this was a game where it felt like I just never felt like Louisville was the better team at any point. Like there was never, a time period in the game where it was like, oh, that Louisville team, that's the team that, we thought we were going to see. It was overall, like for 40 minutes, just not a good performance. And, it sparked a lot of questions and concerns amongst the fan base. And rightfully so. I mean, when you get beat by 22 at home for a team that, I mentioned on this show that I thought Louisville was going to pull off the upset. And truthfully, the only thing that got upset was me after the game and Card Nation as well. It was a tough loss to swallow. Like I think I speak for a good majority of the fan base, and I don't like to say that there is glory in losing or we're taking mental victories, but I think that the majority of the fan base wouldn't be as concerned if Louisville was to have lost this game by less than 10 points. Like if you play decently and you lose to Tennessee by, let's throw a number out there. Let's say they lose by 7. Then I think that you're having a different tone on this show, right? But losing by 22 and not having the lead once. You scored that first basket when it was 10-0. Reyne Smith hit a three-pointer with 14:35 left to go in the first half. The first TV timeout came and went. You were sort of hovering around that 8 to 12 point number for a good portion of the first half. Tennessee ended up running the score up a little bit. You went down by 14 at half. Reyne Smith hit a three-pointer to cut the lead back down to single digits at 9. And then Zakai Ziegler, who didn't know that the shot clock was expiring, looked up at the shot clock, threw up a deep three, made it, and then all the momentum was gone for the remainder of the game. It seemed like Louisville might have quit at some point in that second half, but towards the end, you could still see the hustle. You could see the Cardinals diving after loose balls and just, making those effort plays. So, those issues of Louisville quitting, I think that those were definitely put off to the side. But Pat Kelsey said it in his press conference that, Louisville kind of needed this loss. Now, maybe this is coach speak, right? I mean, it's hard to really justify needing a 22-point loss, but maybe, there is some merit in that, suggesting that, hey, look, we needed to get punched in the face to really, face some adversity and grow through it. That's the part of this where, look, I know that I predicted the upset against Tennessee, and it felt like Vegas thought the same thing with the Cardinals being the favorite at tip-off. But I do also kind of look at this from the spot of where I was when Louisville won those exhibition games, as I remember coming on to the show and saying, we need to be patient because, yes, they're beating the teams that they're supposed to beat, but it is a tough non-conference schedule. It's a tough first couple months of the season. 13 new players and a coach that has never coached a Power 5 team. Now, that's not to say that Louisville wouldn't be good at some point in the season, because obviously I thought the same, because I have Louisville predicted at 21-10. Does my prediction change? Not yet. I mean, yes, the loss to Tennessee, it's not ideal whatsoever. So I'm not trying to make light of this loss. Like, it's a head scratcher. It's one that, automatically, I think by default makes you feel some concern, because Louisville fans have seen, this. I mean, it's like you've seen this movie over and over the past couple of seasons where, there's some juice coming into the season, and then Louisville plays a team that maybe they shouldn't beat, or they should, but not by much, and they just got blown out. And it's not like Louisville looked good. It was a tough performance. It looked like Louisville was almost sort of rattled at home. Now, I know that 13 new players, it just is what it is. Now, I guess you can also say that Tennessee was extremely efficient, which they were. Some of these were open shots. Some of these were just tough shots, and we'll break that down kind of coming up here in the next segment. But I look at this, and I know the fan base is worried, because I'm in some of those group chats. I'm in some of those Discord chats. I see Twitter. It's pretty hard to miss it. And I see both of the sides of the equation, or both sides of the discussion. I should kind of clarify, where you see like, oh yeah, you talked a big game with this team, and the first legit team that they end up playing, they get blown off of the court in their home arena. And it seems like all the momentum that you had coming into the offseason, it's gone. All the juice around the program that you had coming into this game, it's gone. At least for the time being. Because on the other side of the discussion, you have the notion that this is the second game of the year. Tennessee had far more returning pieces than Louisville. Now, yes, they lost 4 of their top 6 scorers, but they brought some pieces back. Zakai Ziegler, Jemai Mashak, Jordan Gainey, you name it. Like, they've brought some pieces back to this team. And Louisville didn't have that luxury. They had to go to the portal and get 13 new scholarship players that have never played with each other. And some of them haven't played at the Power 5 level. But I don't really think it's like Louisville's not talented enough, because I think Louisville has the talent. It's just a matter of, like, I saw an offense out there that just honestly lacks the chemistry. And when you I don't want to compare it to like playing pickup ball, because Louisville has had some time to play together, both against internal competition and external competition. They've gone to the Bahamas to play teams. They've played 2 exhibition games. This is their second regular season game, but it's still really early, and it's going to take some time. Like, is this going to be the same Louisville team that we see play in early January? I don't think so in the slightest. Like, I think that this team is going to improve pretty significantly. Like, 2 things can be true at one time. Number 1, the loss to Tennessee was downright embarrassing. But number 2, the season's not over. And I know that, the PTSD of the past couple seasons, to where Louisville gets blown out against any team that is comparable in talent to them. Like, I get it. I get the concern. But at the end of the day, you're with a new coaching staff, and I appreciated the tone of Pat Kelsey in the press conference. He seemed pretty adamant that, like, yeah, we're going to be good. This is not the team that you're going to see moving forward. Yes, we have to, play a tough non-conference schedule, but we're going to be better. And that sort of also sparks a little bit of concern. So, like, if you're losing by 22 to Tennessee, how quickly can you sort of turn things around? Because you have Indiana at the end of this month. You have either Gonzaga or West Virginia after that on the next day. You have Mississippi. You have Duke. You have Kentucky, all in the next 2 months. So yes, it's understood that it's going to take some time for this team to turn things around, but you almost don't really have the luxury of taking too much time because you have to sort of figure some things out. So I think that you're going to start to see some things get better pretty much soon. Like, I feel bad for Bellarmine almost because I feel like that's going to be the game, when Patino's teams, I bring up Patino and some people hate that. But I'm just using this as a comparison, like Patino's teams after a tough loss, like you felt bad for that next team because there's going to be a concerted effort. I feel like that's almost going to be the vibe here. Louisville has 10 days off before they play against Bellarmine. But to really understand where Louisville needs to go moving forward, you have to look at what went wrong. And for Louisville, it was truly more of a sense of what went right. And that answer is not much at all. We'll break it down coming up on the next segment of Locked on Louisville. Card fans, today's episode of the show was brought to you by the title sponsor of the show, FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets in the NFL, all in one place. On tomorrow's episode of the show, we're going to break down or start to preview that Stanford football matchup. Louisville opens up at the moment 19.5-point favorites according to FanDuel. All you have to do, visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Card Nation, thanks again for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked on Louisville, free and available on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. One scheduling note, if you haven't paid attention to the past couple shows, I have mentioned it basically in passing that, or in passing between, the transitions from each segment, that I'm not going to be in town. I will be at a work trip this week, up until later in the week. So the episodes that you see right now, the one on Wednesday, the one on Thursday, those are pre-scheduled and pre-recorded. So there won't be an episode tomorrow on Tuesday. I will be back, and there will be an episode on Friday. So just a heads up in that regard. So looking at this loss, 77-55 against the number 12th ranked Tennessee Volunteers, I think that you have to give some credit to Tennessee. And when I say some credit, I mean a good amount. I mentioned it's hard to really draw conclusions on teams with just a small sample size because they didn't really look all that great against Gardner-Webb, but they were really good defensively on Saturday. They switched off the ball well. On-ball defense was really good. They forced turnovers. The active hands forced some steals. And defensively, Rick Barnes' teams usually are really good in that department. Offensively, they made their shots. Look, you can say what you want about how bad Louisville might have played. When you play a team with as much talent as Tennessee and they shoot 56.6% from the field in 52.6% from three-point line, making 10 of 19, it's going to be challenging to beat a team when the opposition does that. When you shoot over 50% from the field, closer to 60 than 50, and over 50% from three on 19 attempts, it's going to be a tough game. Will Tennessee shoot like that for the rest of the season? No. I mean, granted, they had some really good guard play, and Zakai Ziegler and Chaz Lanier is an elite backcourt, and they played like it. That was the majority of their offense. Both of those guys scored 19 points, and my hope was that Louisville was going to come into this game and force other players to beat you. But, I mean, those guys made a combined 7 3-pointers. They shot the ball pretty well, just around 50%, both of them. Felix Okpara had 10 points and 6 boards. Outside of that, I mean, Igor Milicic had 7 points. One of those was on a breakaway dunk. Jordan Gainey had 9 points. So overall, I mean, the depth for Tennessee was put to the test, but they really didn't have to utilize it. And I felt like Tennessee deserves a good amount of credit. But Louisville, let's start on the offensive side. First of all, the turnovers, I think, were a problem early on. Like Louisville didn't have a shot in the first 2 minutes of the game. They shot 26.7% from the field, 25.6% from three-point line. They made 16 field goals on Saturday, and 10 of those were three-pointers. All definitely way over half of their attempts on the game came from the three-point line. And, I mean, yes, they had a couple of opportune makes, but for the most part, it was not a good shooting day for the Louisville Cardinals. They made 13 of 13 free throws, so that was a bright side of things, but it wasn't a good game. Louisville, for the fourth time in program history, according to the best wager on Twitter, at the best wager, for the fourth time in school history, they forced at least 20 turnovers and scored less than 60 points. Like, it's the first time that has happened since they played Northern Iowa in 2012. So first time in over a decade. It felt like Louisville was just way too one-dimensional. They shot way too many three-pointers. I know this is a team that likes to shoot the perimeter shot, but when the shot is not falling, sometimes you have to try things differently. And I think that also only shooting three-pointers is detrimental to what you want to do, because it allows defenses to, number one, not have to work as hard. Number two, be ultra aggressive on the perimeter. And number three, be able to sort of sell out on trying to force steals because they know you're not going to take it inside. And Louisville had chances to do so. Like, they got Tennessee right close to the bonus with well over half to go in both of the first and second periods. And they didn't try to force the issue to try to get into the bonus. And they didn't try to get to the line. In the second half, you could see seemed like there was a more concerted effort to try to get to the paint. But when they got to the paint, it was like they didn't want to shoot. Like, how many times did you see Louisville drive into the paint and not even look at the basket? Like, they had a good look at the basket, but instead passed it out for a three-point shot. Now, I think some of that is because Louisville doesn't really have a true traditional post presence, at least not right now. And I think part of that also is the chemistry. Like, these are 13 new scholarship players, 11 if you want to count the two redshirts. So I think that as we move forward through the season, I think that you're going to see Louisville sort of tweak some things and improve things. But, you didn't see much happen on the offensive end. Like, they didn't shoot the ball well. They just kept passing around the perimeter. And one thing that I feel like Louisville could do better, and of course I'm not a college coach, but they didn't really force the help defense to, get off of their assignment. Like, in that offense, it's like you're passing the ball around the perimeter, but you're not creating any situations where the help defense has to come, and you're not getting any open shots. Like, Louisville took some ill-advised shots. They had some open looks, but, for the most part, it was just a rough offensive game. So I look for that to be something that improves. I don't think you're going to see a situation where Louisville's ever going to play that bad offensively at any point this season. I think that there are going to be some tweaks, and thankfully Louisville has 10 days to sort of prepare for that. But Louisville's, key offensive players that they're relying upon to be, the go-to guys didn't really play all that well. Javon Hadley was 1 for 4 with 3 points. Terrence Edwards, 2 for 12, 0 for 5 and 3 with 5 points. Chucky Hepburn was 2 for 7, 1 for 4 with 8 points. I thought he didn't play all that bad. Kaysen Pryor, 1 for 7, 0 for 5 from 3 with 6 points. Corin Johnson, 1 for 6, 0 for 2 with 2 points. Really, the only player that played well offensively was Reyne Smith. He went 5 of 13, 4 of 12 from the three-point line, and he made some big shots. So it's going to be on the team as a whole to be able to step forward. And like I said, when you get punched in the mouth, how do you respond? Defensively, they didn't really handle motion well when the screens came. They had issues defending the roll man. Too many times, Louisville sort of tried to hedge the ball handler on the screen. And with a guy like Zakai Ziegler handling the ball for the most part and having really good vision, that's not really the greatest thing to do. And thus, in part, Tennessee's offense was able to get some mismatches. They weren't really tracking movement all that well around the perimeter, had some open looks, giving up the second chance points. Like, this is a Tennessee team that got out-rebounded by Gardner-Webb, and they out-rebounded you 40-26. And that probably isn't even as close as it was. So overall, offensively, bad shot selection, one-dimensional. Your big-time players not stepping up in the moment. Defensively, not rebounding well, interior defense, not picking up the movement, and much more. But what issues did we see on Saturday? What issues did we see on Saturday do we believe are going to be the biggest concerns moving forward? Well, I feel like a lot of this is going to be geared towards the defensive side of the ball. And we'll sort of break it down a little bit more when we come back on this episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Cardinal fans, it is that time of year. Basketball is starting to get into the full swing of things as we continue through the non-conference schedule. The KFC Yum Center was hyped up on Saturday, and I hope you were like me, utilizing Game Time to get your tickets to the action. I've already got my tickets to the Bellarmine game with Game Time because when I downloaded the Game Time app, I realized that there's no other ticketing service that I'm going to utilize with all of the benefits at your fingertips. There's the all-in pricing feature that you can toggle on to remove surprise fees at checkout. There is the panoramic views from your seats that you can see when you look at any ticket out there. And this is all in an app that offers you the most protective and covered ticket coverage in the industry. So do yourself a favor. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. We didn't see much go right for Louisville. The only thing, there's two things that I think that went right. Number one, you forced 20 turnovers. And number two, you went 13 of 13 from the free throw line. Those are positives, but completely overshadowed by everything that went wrong. So the challenge here is separating logic from emotion and, trying to look past a brutal loss to sort of project what the biggest concerns are moving forward. What did we see on Saturday that is a problem now, but moving forward, it's going to fix itself, or it's going to be fixed. And I think that when this team gets more opportunities to play competition, I think offensively they're going to be better. I think that you're going to see Pat Kelsey work through some tweaks. You're going to see this offense continue to build cohesion and camaraderie and chemistry on the court. And I think that there's going to be a shift in what they're trying to do. Now, not reinventing the wheel. They're still, going to try to play within that system. But I think that you're going to see this offense become less one-dimensional. I think that you're going to see some of these players that struggled on Saturday play better as we, get through the season, building up their confidence and whatnot. I think the biggest concerns sort of come on the defensive side. One, I guess you can maybe make it an offensive issue as well, but they got some offensive rebounds. They got 13. They got more offensive rebounds than Tennessee, but overall, they got one less defensive rebound. So rebounding is something that worries me. Now, you looking into Morehead State. Morehead State wasn't really a team that incorporated much size into their front court, but they out-rebounded Morehead State by 4. They gave up 12 offensive rebounds to Morehead State. And I mean, that's not the greatest, but it's not like earth-shattering, push the panic button. But you got out-rebounded 40-26 against Tennessee. They had one less offensive rebound than you did defensive rebounds. And the second chance opportunities hurt Louisville in this game. I wish I could kind of go back and see, the second chance opportunities. But, I mean, it was tough. Tennessee had 40 points in the paint. Interior defense is something that also I worry about, and it was something that I worried about coming into the season, is that you didn't really go out into the portal and get a traditional rim protector. James Scott, I think, has the potential to be a good rim protector, but I'm not sure that he's there yet, and that's no problem. It's just it might take some time for him to, sort of find his footing in the ACC and playing some better competition. But you have a bunch of stretch forwards that can, stretch the floor and hit the three ball, and they can propose some mismatches. But one of the risks that you have when you fill your roster out that way is that when you go up against teams with more size and physicality, how are you going to defend down low? And Tennessee had 40 points in the paint. Now, some of that was guys taking it to the rim, scoring in transition, but some of that was also getting the ball to players in the post. Chaz Lanier hitting that, short turnaround jumper. Felix Okpara had 10 points. Igor Milicic had 7 points. Looking also, who was the other player that they had that? Cade Phillips, 6'9" forward. He had 6 points. So the list goes on. Tennessee scoring 40 points in the paint compared to 10 by Louisville. That makes it even worse. 10 by Louisville. It's a tough pill to swallow. And you're going to go up against more physical teams, like Ole Miss is physical, Indiana's physical. Either Gonzaga or West Virginia is going to be physical. Duke is going to be physical. Kentucky is going to be physical. Not every team in the ACC, but ACC, like Clemson, is also going to be physical. Miami is going to be physical. North Carolina, like the list goes on. You're going to play some more physical teams. So as good as Tennessee's backcourt is, they don't have the best front court. Serviceable front court, above average front court, but it's not like the front court. Serviceable front court, above average front court, but not the best front court. You're going to go up against some very good front courts. Like Cooper Flagg is coming up on the schedule. Omar Ballo is coming up on the schedule. The list goes on. So for me, I'm looking at two things. How is Louisville going to improve interior defense? Now, yes, James Scott did get in foul trouble in that first half, so that might have played a portion of it. But even when he was on the court, the interior defense wasn't still all that great. And rebounding, how's Louisville going to be better in terms of rebounding defensively? They didn't box out well. Some of the misses were just unforgiving off the rim, and they just found Tennessee hands. It happens like that sometimes. But you got out-rebounded by 14. So, again, problems moving forward, something that I'm looking forward to seeing how they're addressed. And, yes, you're hoping to see them improve against Bellarmine and Winthrop, as it should. But a lot of this is going to be put to the test, I should say, against Indiana when you go down for the battle for Atlantis on the day before Thanksgiving. So something to focus on, something to look at moving forward. Again, in the context of things, I think that Louisville is better than what they showed. I think that this team lost by 22. They didn't only get punched in the mouth. They got punched in the mouth, knocked down, and kicked while they were down. Like, they got beat up. So the true question now is, when you get knocked down, how do you respond? When you face the adversity of which you did, when you get your pride taken, when you get embarrassed on your home court, how do you respond? How do you improve and how do you move forward? That's going to be a true testament to how good this Louisville team is. We will see. Pat Kelsey was adamant in his press conference that, we're going to use this to our benefit. And the team that you're going to see here soon is going to be completely different. And I hope he's right. And until he shows me that I can't, I'm going to believe him. And I believe you should too. I believe there should be some patience exercised amongst the Cardinal fans, starting with myself. That is going to wrap up this episode of the show. There won't be an episode tomorrow. We'll preview the Stanford game on Wednesday. And then Thursday, we'll also dive into some Stanford talk, explain why Louisville's going to win that matchup, and also dive into a weekly mailbag. So everyone, have a great day. Have a great start to the week. We'll see you right back here coming up on Wednesday.